Hello, my friend. Thank you for joining me in this quiet space today. Have you ever noticed how we greet our emotions like unwelcome strangers? Joy gets the red carpet treatment, while sadness is hurried out the back door. Fear is locked in the basement, and anger, well, anger isn't even allowed past the front gate. But what if I told you that every emotion, every single one, arrives at the doorstep of your heart carrying a message meant specifically for you? Today's story emerged from one of Rumi's most profound teachings, a quiet retelling from Rumi's beloved poem, filtered through my understanding of how ancient wisdom speaks to our modern struggles with emotional acceptance. It's a story about a man who learned to transform his relationship with his own feelings in the most unexpected way. Once upon a time, Karim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he arranged the final cushions in the main hall of his inn. The desert rose had been his family's legacy for 3 generations, a small but welcoming refuge for travelers between Damascus and Baghdad. The thick stone walls kept the rooms cool during scorching days, and the central courtyard fountain provided both music and peace for weary soul. But lately, Karim felt anything but peaceful. A heaviness had settled over him like dust after a sandstorm. Persistent, unwelcome, impossible to completely sweep away. He'd catch himself snapping at his wife Yasmin over trivial matters, then spend hours afterward drowning in guilt. Waves of anxiety would crash over him without warning, leaving him breathless and confused. Sometimes, a profound sadness would descend, so deep he could barely remember what happiness felt like. Why can't I just feel normal? The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a man whose livelihood depended on welcoming strangers with open arms. Yet he fought a daily war against the uninvited visitors of his own emotional landscape. When joy arrived, he'd cling to it desperately, terrified of its departure. When anger knocked, he'd barricade the door. Sadness was shown to the smallest, darkest corner of his heart, while fear wasn't acknowledged at all. The inn thrived on Karim's reputation for hospitality, but his inner world had become a fortress under siege. What Karim didn't know was that the universe was preparing to send him a teacher, one who would arrive on the darkest night of his life, when the storm outside matched the tempest within his soul. The storm struck without warning on a moonless Thursday, bringing winds that howled like wounded spirits and rain that fell in sheets so thick they turned the world into a gray-green blur. Karim had sent his staff home early and was preparing to close the inn when lightning revealed a figure stumbling toward his door. She was tall and graceful despite being soaked to the bone, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. Something about her presence made Karim's chest tighten, not with fear, but with a recognition he couldn't name. "Peace be upon you, brother," she said, her voice carrying a warmth that seemed impossible given her bedraggled state. "Might you have room for one more weary traveler?" "Of course, sister," Please, come in from this terrible weather." Karim stepped aside, noting how she paused at the threshold, as if asking permission from the house itself. As she entered, something shifted in the air, not dramatically, but the way candlelight changes when you're no longer trying so hard to see. The inn felt more spacious somehow, as if the walls had exhaled and remembered their true purpose. "I'm Karim," he said, taking her rain-soaked cloak. "Welcome to the Desert Rose." "I'm Layla," she replied, then added with a knowing smile, "And thank you for the welcome. It's rarer than you might think." Over the next hour, as Karim prepared a simple meal and showed her to the finest room, he found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. The weight he'd been carrying, the emotions that felt like burdens. "Ah," Layla said, settling into her chair with the grace of flowing water. "You run a guest house for bodies, but you've forgotten how to tend the guest house of your own heart." Karim paused, a spoonful of lentil soup halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "Tell me, brother, when a traveler arrives at your door, what do you do?" "I welcome them, of course. I ask about their journey, offer food and rest, try to understand what they need." "Even if they're covered in dust," Layla interrupted. "Even if they smell of camels and sweat? Even if they wake you in the middle of the night?" "Well, yes," Karim said. "That's what hospitality means." Layla leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with something between mischief and profound compassion. "Then why, dear Karim, do you treat the travelers of your inner world so differently?" That question hung in the air like incense, and Karim felt something deep within him beginning to shift, as if a door he'd kept bolted for years was slowly, carefully, beginning to creak open. "I don't understand," Karim said, though something in him was already beginning to. Layla rose and moved to the window, watching the storm rage outside. "Every emotion that visits your heart, brother, is a guest. Joy comes dancing through your door. Yes, welcome her. But when sorrow arrives, dragging her heavy bags, you try to turn her away. When anger pounds on your door with his fierce energy, you pretend not to hear. When fear whispers at your window, you draw the curtains tight." She turned back to him, and in the lamplight, her face seemed to glow with understanding. "But consider this, brother. What if each emotion is not a burden to be endured, but a teacher to be honored? What if sorrow comes, bearing the gift of depth? Anger carries the fire of boundaries, and fear brings the wisdom of protection." Karim felt his chest tighten, not with anxiety this time, but with recognition. "But some of these feelings, they hurt so much." "Yes," Layla said gently. "Some guests track mud through your beautiful carpets. Some leave dishes unwashed. Some stay longer than you'd like. But tell me, have you ever learned more from a comfortable guest or a challenging one?" As if summoned by her words, a wave of that familiar sadness began to rise in Karim's chest. His first instinct was the old one. Push it down. Distract himself. Make it go away. But instead, he found himself pausing. "There it is," he whispered. "Yes," Layla said. "There she is. Your sorrow. Can you feel her at the door of your heart?" Karim closed his eyes, and for the first time, instead of barricading the entrance, he imagined himself walking to the door of his inner guest house. The sadness stood there, not as a dark monster, but as a veiled woman carrying a worn traveling bag. "What would I say to her?" he asked aloud. "What would you say to any guest who had traveled far to reach you?" Layla said gently. Karim took a deep breath that seemed to come from the soles of his feet. "Welcome," he whispered. "You must be tired from your journey. Please, come in. What do you need? What have you come to teach me?" And in that moment of welcome, something miraculous happened. The sadness didn't disappear, but it transformed. Instead of the heavy, suffocating blanket it had been, it became something else entirely. The teacher pointing toward what he'd lost in love, a guide showing him the depths of his own capacity for care, a reminder that his heart was large enough to hold the full spectrum of human experience. Tears flowed down Karim's cheeks, but they felt like rain after a long drought. "She's showing me," he began, his voice thick with wonder. "She's showing me how much I care. About Yasmin, about this inn, about life itself. The sadness isn't the problem. It's the shadow cast by love." Layla nodded, her own eyes bright with tears. "And now, dear Karim, you're beginning to understand true hospitality. Not just of the body, but of the soul." The storm began to quiet outside, and Karim felt a corresponding stillness within himself. Not the emptiness he'd mistaken for peace before, but a spacious calm that had room for everything. "What about the other emotions?" he asked. "The anger, the fear, the restlessness?" "Practice," Layla said simply. "Each time one arrives, greet them as you would any guest. Ask what they've come to teach. Thank them for making the journey. Some will stay briefly, some longer. Some will become dear friends. Others will remain mysterious visitors. But all deserve the courtesy of recognition." Karim thought of his wife, of all the times his suppressed emotions had leaked out sideways, creating conflict where there might have been understanding. "I've been such a poor host to myself." "You've been human," Layla replied. "We all learn to fear our own vastness. But you, brother, you, who welcome strangers in the middle of storms, you have the heart of a natural host. You simply forgot that your emotions are not enemies, but messengers." As dawn approached, Karim felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Not happiness exactly, but a profound readiness with whatever might come. A curiosity about his own inner landscape that felt like adventure rather than dread. When the first light of dawn painted the courtyard fountain in shades of rose and gold, Karim understood that he was about to receive a gift that would transform not just how he lived, but how he loved. "I should check on the road conditions for your journey," Karim said, as they shared morning tea in the courtyard, where the storm had left everything washed clean and glistening. Layla smiled, that same knowing expression she'd worn when she first arrived. "My journey here is complete, brother. I came to deliver a message, and you've received it. But sister, where will you go now?" "Where all teachers go when their work is done," she said, rising gracefully. "Into the stories that help others remember what they already know." With this profound awakening, Karim looked around his inn. The physical space was the same as yesterday, but his new understanding had completely transformed it. Every corner now felt as if it could hold whatever came, and every room was prepared for any visitor. How could I have forgotten something so sacred? His profound realization lingered in the air. But as he turned to look at her, Layla was gone. Not dramatically, simply absent, as if she had been absorbed back into the light itself. Yet the scent of jasmine lingered, and something in the air still whispered of starlight and infinite hospitality. Now, in the sacred pause of this story, I invite you to consider the guest house of your own heart. We live in a culture that teaches us emotional hospitality is a weakness, that we should only open our doors to pleasant feelings while barricading ourselves against anything uncomfortable. But the great poet Rumi understood something we're only beginning to rediscover. Our emotions aren't obstacles to enlightenment. They are the very path itself. Each feeling, welcomed with curiosity rather than resistance, becomes a teacher instead of a burden. This doesn't mean we become doormats to our emotions, any more than running an inn means letting guests destroy the furniture. It means we develop the courage to stay present with our full human experience, trusting that even our most difficult feelings carry the wisdom we need. Now, my friend, it's time for us to depart. Until our path crossed again, may you remember that your heart is a sacred guest house, with walls wide enough for every joy and sorrow.